Well, we have made it thus far through all of our different holidays of the church, I guess, and celebrations. And fortunately, I'm not going to stand here and do what Jason did and say, Happy Easter, or Pentecost, or whatever. But I remember a while back, I was part of the group here that studied a book. And the person who had written it was Marianne Edgar, and I've heard it pronounced Budde, B-U-D-D-E. She is the Episcopal bishop in Washington, D.C., and that's close to my heart because that's where I went to seminary. So I also know about the National Cathedral. And in that, she has been very brave. And I hope that you have seen what she has done at times. But she has stood and spoken truth to power and has not backed down and will not. So thanks be to God who calls different people. And she never thought that she would be where she is as a bishop in the Washington Diocese of the Episcopal Church. She continues to say that God has called me to show mercy to the least and the last and the lost. So that is my calling. But she also will say, I continue to accept what I did not choose to be or do. So in that, she proclaims God's love in all situations. And thus far, she is not afraid. Now, when we look at the scriptures as they have been read to us, Elijah was a great prophet. A lot to be learned from Elijah. But now he is even afraid. And we thought Peter would stand up and tell Jesus things that we thought, what is he saying to Jesus? And Elijah is standing up and saying things to God. He's telling him all about what happened. He told him even that I know I'm the only faithful one that's left. Well, if we read a little farther, we find out that Elijah forgot about 7,000 other faithful. And so God keeps coming and asking him, what are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing? And even Elijah cannot run far enough away from God that God cannot find him. And he feeds him. And he loves him. Even though Elijah thought he knew it all, he didn't bring that up. But he said, you seem to think you are alone. You have nothing to eat. You're afraid that everybody's going to come and take you away as well. But you're my prophet. Not only am I going to feed you, I'm going to send you back. And I'm going to give a disciple to you named Elisha, and you will teach him. So even at that moment, certainly Elijah had to think about the fact that he was going to have to accept something that he did not choose. So it didn't just start with this bishop. It started way back. When we get to the New Testament, here's Jesus speaking truth to power, because there's a little undercurrent here that I found out that when you talk about the guy saying, I'm Legion, and he certainly had some problems to begin with, Legion at that time meant the 10th Legion of Rome. So certainly people were afraid. And their standard at that time, that particular legion of Romans, standard, mean their flag, had a boar's head on it. Think about that for a while. Where did those demons end up? So the people were afraid. Perhaps they still were afraid of the man that was sitting with Jesus, and they were chatting and talking. He was in his right mind. He had clothes on. But that wasn't all that was going to take place. Because Jesus tells him, don't come with me. Go back home. And that was important. Go back home, because there you will find home. There you will find the people will welcome you, because you're going to tell them everything that God has done for you. And certainly, he had to think for a moment about the same thing that the bishop thought about, accepting what he did not choose. Now, I'll be a little personal in what I'll say here, as I am accepting some things I did not choose, and you are helping me through it. I didn't know that at 73 I would have a bum knee. I can still remember times when I could still skip rope. I could skip with the kids. I could run with them. But all of a sudden, my knee was holding me back. So in the midst of that, of course, I went and checked it out with a doctor, and the doctor keeps saying, I don't want to do anything yet. And I keep thinking, what is yet when I can hardly walk at times? But that's kind of where it is. I even sent him a message, that my chart stuff you can do. I didn't get much back that was helpful. And then on top of all that, and you're still helping me with this as well, I found out that I have a racing heartbeat from time to time. And in the midst of that, of course, you're put through all these tests and stuff. And when I went to see this cardiologist, I said to him, I have no idea what's going on. I've never been at this place before. You better have some things to tell me, because I don't understand what's going on. He said, you don't know when your heart's racing? I said, I do not. I don't even know what it means. So you need to help me. So he started drawing things, on that paper that's over the examining table. He took out his pen and started drawing things and writing. I thought, what is this, And then he says, well, I think from all I see, you have SVT. I said, well, that's very nice. I'm sure you know what that means, but I have no idea. And he says, is suppurative ventricle tachycardia, and you're asymptomatic. I said, well, that's nice, but I'm not sure I know what that means either. Let's keep going. And tachy isn't the kind of tacky we think, as many of you know. I started talking to a few of you, and you said, I got that. I've got that. I'm taking the same medicine you're taking. And you don't know it when your heart's racing? You don't feel it? And I said, well, I should, because my cardiologist sat there and drew pictures of everything to show me, but I said, I don't feel it. I don't know it's there. But this doctor did something that I will never forget, and I will have to tell him this when I see him again. 3 times before I left that day, and we were still talking, 3 times he said to me, I am only a phone call away. 3 times. I kind of stopped him, I think, because of all of my questions and all of my not understanding all of the words, and he took his time to talk to me. He tried to help me understand what I was into. And you helped me and are helping me as well. So I am accepting some things that I did not choose. I told Carol, she's in my sermon, you have an excellent chairperson of your administrative staff. Talk about being at the wrong place at the wrong time. It was after church several weeks ago. Carol had out her list, and she said, I've gotten this covered, I've gotten this covered, I got this covered, with that in-between time between ministers. Said, I do need someone to cover a few days there in case we need a minister when there isn't anybody in town. Well, I stood there and thought a minute. And of course, I was the only minister standing there. I said, okay, Carol, for you, I will do that. Well, then she went down her list again. So that's good, that's good. I only have one thing left. And I thought, I think I need to walk out the door at this point. Well, you have to remember, I'm a retired United Methodist minister. I served over 40 years. But retired, I'm starting to see, doesn't mean a whole lot. So she stepped going through her list. And you don't know how many times I've told Jason Harvey when he says, don't you need to preach? Don't you think you want to preach? I said, I don't have a need to preach. I'm retired. But here was Carol, a pretty special person to this congregation in what she has done and continues to do, and what you do for her. And what was on her list? Well, on June 22nd, I need to find somebody to preach. And I thought, this is definitely being the wrong place at the wrong time. So I didn't accept it there, but later in the week, I got in touch with her and I said, you know, you mean a lot to a lot of people, and you mean a lot to me. So how can I stand here and say, I don't want to preach? So I told her, I'll be there. So it was accepting something that I did not choose. But there's just those people, all of you. You love each other. It shows. It shows how you treat one another, not only Sunday mornings, but at Martha's table, at covered dishes, at times when they're tough for everyone. You're there for each other. Even if at times you're afraid, and we have to ask you, like God asked Elijah, what are you doing here? I have something for you to do. Certainly, simple acts of loving kindness bring a way of renewed hope for all of us. And you do that. Now, you may sit there and say, well, we don't do it very well. And I have to say, yes, you do. We all get into things with each other from time to time. But this congregation comes back together. It comes back to love one another, to serve God in all that you say and you do, of little acts of kindness that you might not even realize you did. You are a giving congregation in so many, many ways. A quote from Bishop Buddy says, our capacity to love will grow. And through us, God will work quiet miracles that keep love alive, even in troubling times. I've seen that happen here from the moment that Keith and I started coming here, and now that I have continued coming here. So what have we proclaimed today? You gave smiles to one another. You've greeted one another, even when you came in before it was time to formally, I guess, pass the peace to one another. You were already engaged with one another. You engage with one another in Sunday school. You engage with one another when we go to urban ministry to feed people. You engage with one another when we break bread at communion with one another. You listen to one another. You may not have all the answers, none of us do, but because God calls us, like he called Elijah and said, "What are you doing here?" I need you to think about listening to one another. You've certainly listened to me complain over and over, but you still let me come back, and I appreciate that. Acts of kindness for you is more than just a cliche. We see that in lots of places now. Do acts of kindness, but you do them. Not one of us can run so far away that God cannot find us. Not one of us that can run so far away that one of us in this congregation isn't going to come and find you. That's what this congregation does. We find one another, we feed one another, and we say, and I'll quote a famous person, "We belong here, but you know we can't stay here." That's Robert Brewer. He sends forth the students every year at graduation. You belong here, but you can't stay here. We come here to nourish ourselves of singing, of scripture reading, of prayers, of all the shared parts of Sunday school and worship, but we can't stay here. We're called to go forth because we have something special. We have God calling us over and over again, saying, "You can do it. You can do it. You can go and love people that you never thought you could love." Even the fellow that had no clothes and was full of demons, he was loved back in the community. He was loved into sharing what God did for him. So none of us is more than a handshake away, or a hug away, or even a phone call away. God's calling, and so are you. You take care of each other so that then you can go and take care of others. So smile. Don't be afraid. Don't go hide somewhere. Greet one another with words of love and acceptance and concern. My knee may never be healed, my heart may not be, but I still can be made whole because of you, because you are there. You have experienced these things. You have lived through them. So these are minor. What's major is continue to go forth in simple acts of kindness, that through us, love is going to continue. It's going to be a big deal, even in troubling times. And we all know, because of last night, we're in trouble, and we're in troubling times. So we need to hang on to each other and know that we serve a risen Christ. We serve a God who is with us as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and evermore.